Hey guys, Ryan here from Indy Wrestling School. So if you're watching this live, thank you. If you're watching it late, thank you as well. So I figured I'd kind of touch base and go over a couple of questions I've gotten in the past that didn't really fit into any particular video. There were just some questions that I've gotten in the comments, and a couple of people have emailed me over the years. So I figure now's a good time to kind of go over some of that stuff. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull that up here. All right. So, and I apologize. I didn't write everybody's name down for people who asked these questions. So they're just going to be kind of random questions that I'm going to throw out here. So one of the questions I got was my favorite match of all time. I don't think I need this headphone. So that's changed, like most of these answers for any of us who are wrestling fans, right? That stuff changes every couple of years. So if I had to pick, I would say probably the Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart match from SummerSlam for the Intercontinental title a couple years ago. I remember watching that match so many times. And then even more recently, well, I guess it's not recent now, but I would say the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels match from WrestleMania 25, the first one they did. I mean, that was almost a perfect match. And if you're in the business or you're really familiar with wrestling, you can pick up that, they missed a spot at one point and they covered it up so well and got back to it so easily. It's something that you can only really accomplish if you've been doing this for a tremendous amount of time and have all the experience that those guys have. So those two always stand out. I did get the Mount Rushmore question, which I never answer because that's complicated. And it's always like Hogan and Steve Austin. Those two guys are always on there, and then the other two it's always kind of random for me. So the other one I got is top 5 wrestlers, which I think is different than the Mount Rushmore question, because Mount Rushmore to me is people who really changed the business, and top 5 is just who I like. So top 5 to me is a much easier question to answer than the Mount Rushmore question. That's why I try not to ever get into that. Hey, what's going on, guys? See, people are commenting in the chat. I didn't realize there was a chat doing it. I've never done the YouTube live thing, so just bear with me as I'm kind of learning it here. So I would say top 5 wrestlers. I always go to Shawn Michaels. He was the one that kind of really hooked me from an early age. Bret Hart, obviously. Jerry Lawler is a big one. Steve Corino, who not everybody knows, but I was able to work with him for a number of years. So not just doing my own shows, but I got to travel with him and everything. So that was really cool. So I got to see him work all these different areas, and you work a crowd different depending on what area you're in. So I would go with Corino, and then Shane Douglas is another guy who I just absolutely love. I became a much bigger fan of Shane Douglas after I was able to work with him. So I did want to show you guys one thing. So I know this is kind of taped. So let me grab the other part to this real quick. Sorry, I should have been more prepared here. So this is a belt I'm working on right now. I put a video out on re-leathering a belt. You can see it. I'm not completely done with it, and actually still it smells really strongly of the leather glue. But I've had a lot of questions about the belt leathering stuff. I don't have any specific ones pulled up in front of me, but if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask them in the chat. But I'm not an expert by any means with any of this stuff. Certainly not with belt making or re-leathering or anything like that. So, okay, favorite angle. So I always go back to ECW. There's one particular angle I watch fairly regularly, and it's just kind of an angle they did throughout the pay-per-view. It was WrestlePalooza 98, I think, and it was Shane Douglas and Al Snow, and the whole time it was the story that Shane's not going to drop the belt. He's been the champion for a long time. He's got a broken arm. He had like a fractured palate in his mouth, and I think he had one other injury, but they were all like legit injuries. And you could see it in his face. His face is really swollen, and his arm is all screwed up. And he went to get surgery, and everybody knew he was going out to get surgery. So everybody was waiting for Al Snow to win, and it didn't happen. And the air in the arena just kind of deflated. But then everybody kind of got with it and started clapping, and both men were on all the other wrestlers' shoulders and stuff like that. And it was really a cool moment for me, because I realized, like, you can still be surprised at wrestling. And I mean, I was young at the time. I think I was like 15 or something like that. But by then, the quote unquote, the magic was gone for me. But like a moment like that, I always go back to, because those are like the smartest wrestling fans at the time, right? The ECW crowd. And they were able to suspend belief for a second. And they thought Al Snow was going to win. And they were so surprised and maybe disappointed that he didn't. But I think that actually solidified Shane Douglas as the ECW champion. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a better ECW champion than Shane Douglas. Like, to me, he carried that company. How would I, big fan of your channel? Thank you very much. I want to own a wrestler, own my company one day. I always take notes watching. Oh, thank you very much. That's really nice. How would you handle a wrestler who didn't want to lose a match? That's not a situation you're really going to come into that often. It will happen. It will happen, right? So, and the people I've had it happen with are established people, right? So people you've seen on TV, maybe people you grew up watching on TV, and they always have their reasons. They think losses still matter. For the longest time, I mean, this is not the person I'm talking about, but I've heard stories about Honky Tonk Man not wanting to lose because it would affect his bookings and stuff like that. But that doesn't matter anymore. Nobody's going by that. So I always think it's ridiculous when people refuse to lose. But I mean, look, your job as the promoter is to put on what you advertise. There's always a creative way out. So if you have whatever, if it's your champion and he's going against a name, let's just say Honky Tonk Man for the sake of argument, and Honky Tonk Man will not lose to your champion, and now you're in a real fix, right? You can always add a third person to that match. Honky Tonk Man doesn't need to lose. Your champion can beat the other guy. Honky Tonk Man can go to the outside. You can run a double DQ, a double count out. If it's the main event, maybe you change it from the main event and put it on right before intermission. There's a lot of different options you can do and a lot of ways you can get out of that. So you don't need to focus so much on the win-loss thing. It really doesn't come up as much as people think it does. I can count on one hand the amount of times it's happened to me, and I've probably run like 300 live shows, and then if you count backyard shows, I mean thousands of shows in my time. One question I got was favorite indie company besides yourself, and I have to confess I don't watch a ton of any new wrestling. I just don't have the time for it. I'm trying to get caught up on stuff I missed growing up that I didn't know existed, like Mid-South and Memphis and stuff like that. Like, I have thousands of hours of Memphis wrestling, which I love, and then there's thousands of hours of ECW that I just never saw because it was on at like 1 a.m. where I lived. So I'm trying to get caught up on some of that stuff. So I don't watch a ton of new stuff. So I'm not trying to sidestep the favorite independent wrestling company question, but I guess if I had to say the one company I will watch when I see their YouTube videos, and I know they probably don't count as independent, is the NWA. I mean, I guess that they count as independent, right? I mean, they're not a national company by any means anymore, or international company or anything like that. So I guess you can consider them a independent company. What percentage of your show budget would you put towards the marketing and advertising? I think 10% is a good number, but that all depends, right? Like, do you have, And thank you guys for these questions too. Do you have that built-in audience already? Do you have a big following on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or something like that you don't need to really spend a lot of money on advertising? To me, and I know I've said this a lot in a ton of my videos, but my best strategy is getting guys boots on the ground, putting posters up, hanging posters in stores. Always get permission. I think I always forget to say that, but always make sure you're not just, if the store's closed, you're not just sticking flyers up on their window when nobody's there. You always go in, you introduce yourself, tell them what you're doing, and then see if you're able to hang a poster. But to me, that's always the best way to get the word out. And not only that, like you can kind of do a radius of, a 5-mile area around the venue. So you might hit 3 or 4 different towns in that 5-mile radius. So you have people from all over the place coming to the show. And to me, that's the best way to promote, more so than throwing money at it. I know now you can just kind of spend $5, $10, $15 on Facebook and it'll run an ad on, one of your posters or something like that. But I haven't had much success with that, to be honest. It's typically posters and word of mouth that have worked best for me in the past. How exactly would you balance out a show if people want a lot of everything? For example, if someone wants technical, hardcore, lucha, entertainment, etc., all in one show. Yeah, great question. And I like to think that's the kind of show I run, right? But I think every promoter thinks that. But if an outsider was looking at my show, they would say, "Oh, that's just a family show." Or if they were looking at one of Matt Tremont's shows, they would say, "That's just a hardcore show." And I think Matt has a good portion is his hardcore, like the violent style, but he does have a little bit of everything on his shows. So I mean, the best way to balance it out is however you think it's going to work. So typically, I don't like a lot of matches, but that's up to you, right? I like to do 6 to 7 matches. I don't want my shows ever being over 2 hours and 15 minutes. That is the max length I ever want to show. So as long as I can fit, if I can fit 10 matches in 2 hours without it being rushed, I have no problem doing that. In fact, when we did the Super 8 tournament, that was 9 matches, and it was about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, and I don't think that show felt rushed. So there is a way to do it. It's just a matter of, do you need everything on the show? What is your audience going to react to? If your audience is mostly kids, are they going to want to see that violent stuff? Probably not. And even if they do want to see that stuff, odds are their parents, who are the ones paying for their tickets, don't want them seeing that stuff. So it's not always the best thing to have a little bit of everything, but I think we all, as promoters, try to do that. I book for a very, very small indie, and variety works best for us. Yeah. So, I mean, and there's no such thing as a small indie, right? I mean, if you're in the business, you're in the business. I hate this, this top dog, I'm king of the mountain mentality. It's if you're out there and you're putting on a show, you're creating, let's call it art for lack of a better term, without trying to get too fancy with it. I mean, you're out there creating something. So, good for you. And I applaud anybody doing that, because, it does take courage to put your stuff out there, right? I mean, because that a good portion of the audience is cynical, right? And a good portion of the audience is going to crap on it. So to have that bravery and to put something out there, it takes a lot of guts. So good for you. Anybody creating stuff out there, I'm all for that. I had one question that said, how do I get a good Twitter audience? And I am the worst person to ask about that. I'm terrible at Twitter. In fact, when I took over booking for ECWA, I actually found someone online who had been asking me for a long time to take over the Twitter account. So he ran the Twitter for me for a couple months. I would say like the spring of last year until like maybe the fall. And then he just disappeared. Like, he didn't delete the Twitter or anything like that. He just deleted his personal account. I have no idea how to get in touch with this dude. So I'm the worst person with Twitter. I don't I don't do it well. I've seen, like, I would say that the person I know the best that does it well is Colin West from Synergy. He's really built a good audience. For me, Twitter is my least favorite social media. It is by far the most negative out of all of them. And it's just like, I found myself on my personal Twitter. I had to delete it. Like, I was just literally going on Twitter to complain about stuff. Like, it got to that point. I'm like, what am I doing? Why do I need this? So I deleted my own Twitter. And honestly, if it wasn't necessary for a wrestling company to have a Twitter, I wouldn't have one. And honestly, I've thought about just deleting it anyway, because I neglect it quite often, and I just hate it. I really do. Who are some of your favorite bookers that you would look to for inspiration? So obviously Paul Heyman, right? If you're somebody who wants to get in the business and do the creative side, you cannot overlook Paul Heyman. I mean, there's somebody who's excelled in pretty much every role he's done in pro wrestling, just like Jerry Lawler, who I would also throw under one of my guys that I would look up to for inspiration, him and Jerry Jarrett. And then Dutch Mantell. And actually, the cool thing with Dutch is I've actually had some sessions. So we've had some downtime, right, during this whole COVID thing. And we didn't have any shows until I think our next show is April. So I had some downtime. So I reached out to Dutch, and we've been doing these online sessions. So I recorded a couple of those that we're going to put on the channel. I think starting next week. I don't remember exactly, but he's got some like helpful advice, and you guys will all have the benefit of kind of hearing from him, just like I did. So that'll be up on the channel in the next coming weeks, because I think it's important to get multiple views on pro wrestling, because you can't just hear it from one person, right? You got to hear it from as many people as possible. So I asked a lot of questions that I thought you guys might be interested in. So I have a couple videos with him coming out that I'll kind of spread out over the next couple months, because if I put them out all in once, it's a couple hours long. So we'll break them up into sections, so it's kind of a more digestible. Which is going to my other question: why is it called 3 Minute Thursday when it's never 3 minutes? And that is we'll say that's my bad. I always thought these videos would just be 3 minutes, and then I start talking here, and there's nobody to shut me up. So so I just keep talking. Yeah. So for me, Court Bauer has done some incredible things. So it's funny, because I've seen the MLW stuff from years ago, like when Carino was still there, Terry Funk was still there. So I've seen all that stuff, but I haven't really seen the new stuff. But I've heard really good stuff, and everything I've seen as far as like pictures and stuff like that, it looks incredible. I don't know Court Bauer personally. He's one of those, like, he's a friend of a friend. So like I'm like one Kevin Bacon step away from him, but I've never met or spoken to him personally. But I have no doubt that they're doing some incredible things, just because visually it looks pretty awesome, and their roster too, it looks stacked. So that's one I would definitely like to check out. I don't know, is MLW considered an indie still? I think, are they not on TV? If anybody knows, just add it to the comments, because I'm not entirely sure. I try to find a wrestler that gets how it works. I'd say try to find a wrestler that gets how it works for tips. Yeah. Why is it? So this question I was confused at. I think I understand what you're asking. So somebody wrote, why is it so choppy on the edit? But this was an email, so it wasn't on any particular video. So I think what they're talking about is when I put my videos out there, I tend to, my dog is just clawing at the door because I try to get her out of here. I try to chop up all my ums and uhs, because I say and a lot when I'm trying to think. And when I'm editing it, it just drives me friggin' nuts. So I always cut those out. So it's always any dead space or anything I could speed up, I just cut them down to try to get it as close to 3 minutes as possible. So that's why the videos are always kind of like boom, 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 boom. I think that's what they were asking when they said, why is it so choppy on the edit? But I don't know. They don't have long-term contracts from what I know. Okay, about MLW. Okay, so maybe, I guess they are still considered independent then. Another question I got is, this is kind of an obvious one, but where did the channel name come from? So Indy Wrestling School. I think I would change the spelling on it if I had to do it over again. I think I would change it to Indie instead of Indy. That's kind of a topic for debate. A lot of people say it's one, and some people say it's the other. Or I would just change it to Independent Wrestling School. But whatever. I think I'm 6 seasons in at this point. I'm not changing it at this point. When starting a promotion, should I look into creating a school alongside it? No. That is, and that's my opinion, but that is the mistake I've seen so many people make. Literally, actually, less than a mile from my road where I live. When I moved here, there was a wrestling school, and the guy bought a ring. He was opening a wrestling promotion, and he was doing a school with it. And he had 2 people there. And I went in, I introduced myself, said, I run some shows and stuff like that. People are texting me as I'm on this, and I know they're texting me about this video. So they're going to be saying, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. I'm not reading that on the air. So he had a couple students, and it just, by the time I met him and then moved into my house, which was like a 2-week period, because I came up here for the appraisal or whatever they do, and by the time I moved into the house, the school was closed. So, and I've seen that so many times. The problem is the people who are students, they don't have the money. So if they do have the money, they're going to a Lance Storm or a Cody Rhodes or somebody like that. They're not going to the guy they don't know. Which is, good and bad, right? I mean, it's good they're learning from the right people, because it's not always the case, right? When you get some of these, I don't want to say no name, but people you maybe have never heard of, maybe they're not always training people the right way. I can tell you from experience that I think the person that trained me did not do a good job. And luckily I had the benefit of learning from people who knew what they were doing after the fact, like Mike Keener and John Finnegan and those guys, Steve Carino. But initially, no, like I don't think I had the basics, and I think that was pretty much it. And unfortunately for me, my training experience was inside of it was basically a shed. It was called a dojo, and it was this guy was doing MMA, and the training was on top of a gym mat, one of those gym mats that are like that thick, and it was on top of concrete. So if you've ever fallen on those gym mats, there's like no cushion there, and there's no give like there is in a wrestling ring. So that's how we learned how to bump. And my friend told me, I think I was concussed because I don't remember any of this, but he told me he swore I was going to go through the side of the shed when some of these guys were throwing me, because I was really light at the time. It was a long time ago. And so we just basically got beat up for, a couple hours, 3 times a week for a year or 2. So it wasn't the right way to get trained. You don't learn from just getting beat up. That's 1970s pro wrestling mentality, not current. Somebody said something means what, sir? And I don't know what that word is, so I'm not going to say it. Sounds like that might be a troll. How do I become the promoter that wrestlers want to work with? So if you are a promoter, wrestlers want to work with you. So when we announced the Super 8, which is our big tournament, if you're familiar with independent wrestling at all, the Super 8 is kind of a historic deal. I remember reading about it as a young kid, so to be able to book for it is pretty cool for me. And when we announced that, and we'll usually announce it 5 months in advance or whatever, I already have the 8 guys who will be in the tournament. And I tell everybody, like, hey, we have all 8 guys. We're going to start announcing them one after one, every, once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is. And I'll still get requests. Hey, do you need me for that tournament? No, we just said we have 8 guys. We're good. But not just that tournament, pretty much every show, you'll get emails from people who want to work. and it's just up to you to do the research. And I mean, I try to respond to everybody, but it gets overwhelming. I can't even respond to everybody who's responding to me on this channel all the time. And I think I'm only at 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers. It's not a ton, compared to other channels. But with work and family and stuff like that, you only have so many hours in the day. So I try to make it my policy to respond to everybody. But the truth is, you can't always do it. So if you are getting people reaching out to you, do your best to respond to them, because at the very least, people just want an answer, right? Yes, no, whatever. But yeah, if you are a promoter, people are going to want to work with you because wrestlers want to wrestle. And there's not, there is a ton of companies, but then there's also not, right? Because there's only so many spots on the roster. Big fan of the channel. Thank you very much, man. Thank you. If money was no object, this is gonna be a good one. What match type would you love to book? Oh, this is an easy one. But it's also like kind of a generic response. I always wanted to do a steel cage match, and I can't friggin' find a steel cage anywhere. I've always known somebody who knows somebody else, but it never links up. I just always wanted to do a steel cage. I definitely would want to do the 1980s WWF steel cage, like even the 90s, the blue steel cage. That's the kind of match I would love to do. I know that those matches suck for the people in them, but personally, I would just love to be able to book that. It also sucks doing a steel cage match on an independent show, right? Because you're not lowering it from the ceiling. You don't have that budget. I guess if I have no budget here, because if money was no object, I would just be able to lower it from the ceiling. But as a general rule, steel cage matches on the independents suck because usually you have to do an intermission so the guys can set up the cage, and then you have to come back. And usually it's not just one match after intermission. You have a couple. So now you're throwing 3 matches in the cage. It kind of loses its prestige at that point. So they're tough to do on the independents, but I would absolutely love to do it. Be open and honest about your plans for people and receptive to their ideas is always my 2 cents. Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, and even when I was talking with, and not to keep name dropping here, but you guys will see the video in a couple weeks when Dutch and I were speaking, he said never have an ego. Always listen to anybody. Anybody can have an idea, and he'll listen to anybody. The cameraman has an idea, he'll listen to it. And that's from somebody who's been in the business 50 years. So that's definitely good advice. With your promotion, how many support staff do you have? Ring crew, camera people, ticket collectors, etc. Oh, good question. So that depends on the show, right? We always take as much help as we can get, but with COVID, right, we had to limit, not even limit, we had to really keep track. So it used to be kind of a free-for-all. Anybody who wants to come to the show, come on by. Always an open door policy at my shows. But with COVID, I needed to keep track of everybody who was going to be there because I couldn't exceed the number, the capacity for the building. So if you weren't on the list, you couldn't come in. We actually had a guy who was a manager for a couple of the shows before I took over. He wasn't on the show, and he came with 2 guys who were on the show. And I sent a message out to everybody like 3 times before the show. Do not bring extra people. We do not have the space. They will not be allowed in. The guy showed up. We couldn't let him in. I told him, hey, if people don't show up and we don't hit capacity, you can come in. And he threw a big hissy fit about it. But I mean, it's people's safety at the end of the day. Like we're trying to follow the rules. And if we have, 1 person extra in the building and whatever, the police or somebody shows up, the fire department, they could shut the whole show down because this guy didn't want to listen to the rules. So I'm sure he was real ticked off, but at the end of the day, I don't really give a crap. It's our show. It was either the show or this guy coming in, the way I looked at it. And maybe it wasn't that extreme, but that's the way I looked at it anyway. What is a good age to start? So I started, I always wrestled with my friends as a kid, right? I started doing a TV show when I was 16 on public access. We ran a TV show, and that's back when you had, I don't know if you guys even know what this stuff is, but VHS tapes, which I'm still converting to this day, by the way. They just it never ends. So you had to edit from tape to tape. So I started that at 16. I started training to be a pro wrestler at 17 when people saw me on TV. This promotion contacted me to start training, and I tried running a show unsuccessfully in my 20s, early 20s, like 20, I think, and it didn't work. So I think my first show I was 22. So yeah, so when's a good age to start? I wish I could have started at 18. Like I couldn't rent a car, but I, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I feel like I lost, in my opinion, I lost 4 years there. I mean, I didn't lose them because I was still running shows with my friends and having like a great time. But I would have been running wrestling shows when I was 10 years old. They would have been terrible. They would have been absolutely terrible. But I would have been doing it as long as I could. How can one join a wrestling promotion in a non-wrestling role? The only thing I can suggest is the answer is always no until you ask, right? So throw the question out there. Don't be afraid to email a promoter if their phone number's on the website. Don't be afraid to call them. Don't be afraid to message them on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of those. Because if you don't, the answer is no. I mean, the worst thing they're going to tell you is no, which had you not asked the question, it would have been that anyway. So it never hurts to ask. And the way I always tell people to do it, and this is not unlike a job interview, right, is don't tell me what I can do for you as me being the promoter. Tell me what you can do for me. And I think that's the best way to get somebody's attention. And don't make outlandish claims, right? Like I can increase your attendance by 3,000 people on my first day. Like nobody's going to believe that. It's not about increasing attendance. Just say, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. If you need help with chairs, if you need help with setting up the ring, if you need help with the audio equipment, whatever your skill set is, throw that out there and let them know that you're there and you're willing to help. What are different job roles in a promotion? Oh, I didn't answer. Sorry, I didn't answer your question before I went off on a tangent with how many support staff. So I would say I have 2 or 3 people doing tickets, 2 or 3 people doing food, at least 1 camera person, then a couple hard cams and stuff like that just sit on a tripod. I don't know if you count referee as staff. I count them as talent, but usually 2 refs. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, we have people for merch too. But if you're stuck here's a secret that I learned. If you're short on people, you only have 2 people or 1 person, stick them together, sell your merch, your tickets, and your food all at the door. And that just combines everybody right there. And this way you don't need to worry about, setting up extra tables and stuff like that. You might have to make 1 big long table at the front, but at least you can get everything in. And even if you're worried about the line being too long when people are coming in, which is a good problem to have, you could say, hey, we're not selling food right now. We're not selling merchandise. We're going to sell it after the first match. And then just kind of get everybody in the door, let the show start, and then you could sell the food and merchandise and all that stuff. What advice would you give when you haven't done your first official show yet, but you still want to try and put content out there about your company? So I don't know. I don't know what you can actually throw out there, right? Because teaser graphics don't get attention for the most part, right? Like if you're saying, hey, it's coming, we're going to do this great show. So many people have heard that so many times that it's, I know you're excited and you want to get out there and you want to start, pushing your product and everything. But if you don't have a date, you don't have a building, you don't have a ring, and you don't have talent, and you don't have the money, it's best to wait. It's best to wait till you have all that stuff. Because you don't want to be the person who, like furniture stores, right? Where they just change their name every couple months because they keep burning everybody, there's so many promoters out there that they'll change the company name every 3 to 5 years because they've made so many false claims and false promises, and it just gets carried away. So they just change the company name, come back with the exact same structure, and do it all over again. And we have companies like that in Jersey that just ruin buildings. So obviously you don't want to be that person, and obviously I don't think that's your intent. But I would just wait until you have all that stuff. I know it's exciting, and the fun stuff is getting it out there and having people be receptive to it. But really, you got to get the foundations and the basics squared away before you really can start pushing anything, in my opinion. Blue Cage, yeah. Took a local place 15 minutes to set up the cage before the main event. People left. Yeah. And 15 minutes is really quick for a cage. I've seen it where it takes them like a half hour and they're still struggling. So I think that's actually, pretty good. Thanks for the great content. It helped me a lot. Oh, thank you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Here, I have some other questions that I wanted to cover. Let me see which ones I already did. Where'd the channel? I did that 3 minutes. Oh, so one question I've gotten, which always seems like a good idea until people actually do it, is, and everybody's thinking they're being real inventive when they're doing this, myself included. I tried to do this too, is doing the commentary so the crowd can hear it. Because one of the things that always throws you off when you go to like a WWE show for the first time is it's so weird without the crowd for those first couple or without the commentary for those first couple matches. And then you get into it. So everybody always wants to pipe commentary. Don't do it. It's just a bad idea. The wrestlers work so much better if they're just interacting with the crowd. If the crowd's not, they can be watching the match, but they're listening to you. They're not listening to the cues in the ring. So your crowd is going to fall flat. And then what happens is a lot of times the commentary team tries to be funny, and that just distracts the crowd even further. So I would say do not do commentary live. Just do it in post. You can record it live, but don't pipe it through the speakers so everybody can hear it. It's distracting. And I know it sounds like a good idea in theory, but it's not, trust me. But hey, do whatever you want to do. What is your favorite promotion? So I guess I always have to say WWF, because that was it for me when I first started watching wrestling, right? It was WWF, the 1980s kind of stuff, early 90s, also right up to the Attitude Era. And then pretty much around the time they changed to WWE, I still followed it, but I don't anymore. But I tried hanging on for a couple of years there. It just wasn't the same show. And then obviously ECW. I don't know if you can see all my ECW dolls, action figures, whatever. I call them dolls because if you call them dolls, nobody else can really insult you. Plus my daughter calls them dolls all the time. So yeah, and actually all my pictures, I think up top there are ECW guys. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of ECW. I still to this day I watch stuff and I just enjoy it so much. And then of course Memphis, which I'm still getting caught up on. But I've loved the Memphis stuff for a long time, ever since, before the Andy Kaufman movie. Andy Kaufman's actually the reason I found Memphis. So, okay. And I got one other question here. I can go over here. Let's check out the chat. Hello, Ryan. Hello. As a booker, just reach out, even if you stick around and ask you to help clean up. Yep. Is it more beneficial for a colorful gimmick character or a first name, last name, normal name character? I mean, the promoter's always looking for both, right? You can only have so many, Mr. Wonderfuls and, Mr. Great, and, obviously those are generic names, but you can only have so many of those guys on the show before you need a Brock Lesnar or, somebody who can just beat the hell out of somebody. So you always need a mix of both. As a wrestler, I don't think it hurts you to be versatile and have both in your back pocket, right? What's the harm in carrying, 2 pairs of trunks, or, an extra mask or something. So you kind of have what every promoter needs. One thing that a guy used to do around the New Jersey area was he would travel with a Doink the Clown costume. And if there was an incident or whatever, he would just, somebody no-showed, he could charge you, $100 and he could do Doink the Clown. So that was a way he made extra money So just be prepared and be ready for every situation. Listening from Kentucky. Hello, Kentucky. Philadelphia. All right, you're right. I actually was just in Philadelphia. I bought some leather out in Philadelphia from that. You guys have this place called Tandy Leathers where I got all the stuff to re-leather one of these belts. So thanks for checking out the video, guys. How do you get booked for wrestling? We kind of covered that before, but just to touch base on it real quick. Get out there, send emails, make phone calls, send DMs, but you got to have something to offer, right? So if you're a wrestler, and I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. If you're a wrestler, you need to have an 8x10. I recommend having a Dropbox with your theme song, a couple matches, a couple promos, heel, babyface, even if they're just student matches, in a training area with no crowd. But definitely, if you have stuff with a crowd, use that because promoters want to see how you react with a crowd. Have your theme song in there so that this way people can download it if they're looking to book you. And then if I didn't say it already, the 8x10s and the still shots and stuff like that. And then a little bit like a resume about yourself, where you've worked, who you've trained under, any seminars you've done, and what you're looking to do long-term in wrestling. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. And remember, it's not always easy for the promoters to respond. I always try my best, but I fall short of that. So I'm sure there are people out there that will fall short as well. So try not to take that personally. How many gimmick matches would you say is acceptable to have on one show? So this is a bad question for me to answer. I'm actually doing a show in April that's entirely gimmick matches. But this was a hand-me-down show. So this is a show that they used to do for ECWA in the late 2000s or not the late 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s. It was called the Night of Unusual Matches, which is kind of like, I don't remember. WWF has this pay-per-view with it. It's all gimmick matches, like Taboo Tuesday or one of those. So that they've done that since, but this was like kind of the original show that did it. And it hadn't been done in ECWA for, I guess, like 10 years. So we brought that back for this show, and so we're doing an entire show with gimmicks. But normally, under normal situations, I would say no more than 2 matches, depending on how many matches you're running. If you're running 15 matches, God, please don't. But if you are, you can have, maybe 3 or 4 at that point. But on a 7-match card, I don't think any more than 2 is really necessary. Do you think it's possible to try and mix outlandish, colorful characters with real-life intense storylines? Yeah, I mean, wrestling is kind of whatever you want it to be, right? It's not UFC. So, and even UFC, honestly, even in UFC, there's characters, right? So it's really just what's going to get the attention of the people who are buying a ticket. And if that's a colorful character, if that's just yourself with the volume turned up, whatever's going to work for you. And trust me, if you're a wrestler, your first gimmick will not be your last. You're going to work on that gimmick and go through a million different incarnations, and it's gonna never stop. Holy crap! I've been doing this live stream for 43 minutes. I was thinking if I could get 10 minutes, I'd be lucky. So thank you guys for helping out. I expected to do my couple questions and then log off, but you guys have been great. Hi from Scotland. That's crazy. My wife's mother is from Scotland. That's insane that there's people watching this in Scotland. Hello from Tennessee. Oh, one of my favorite states. Tennessee and Missouri are my 2 favorite states. No disrespect to Jersey. I love New Jersey too. But for example, what if you were to put Fire Ant into Tommy Dreamer? Yeah, why not? I'm sure that Fire Ant has done a serious. I don't know that he's done an angle where somebody else knocked up his girlfriend, but I'm sure he's done an angle that's more serious, as opposed to like just a comedy-driven storyline. And I want to say I sometimes get those gimmicks confused, so I apologize if I'm wrong here. But I think Synergy did something with him. It might be that Hallowicked guy now that I'm saying it. I apologize. Sometimes the masks throw me off, but But I think that gimmick was sort of like a kind of a joke character at one point, and Colin from Synergy did some cool stuff with that, where they really made it like, I think they did like a cinematic match and stuff. So yeah, you can make your character whatever you want, and as long as you do it in a believable fashion, or if it's over the top enough, it's right for pro wrestling. Ambitious question, but how would you start promoting a show in a city country where indie wrestling isn't really a thing? Here, lucha libre is cheap, like a treat tourist. Okay, like a cheap tourist attraction. Tongue tied there. Yeah, so I don't know the answer for. I know in the States. I don't know if you're from the States here, but lucha libre is. I don't want to say looked down on. That's not the right word. It's not as respected and it's not as prevalent as it is in Mexico. And obviously that's the style down there. So I think you have an uphill battle. I don't think it is something easy. I think it's finding the people who are interested in it, and then getting them to spend their money. It's not easy, but it's not easy doing any kind of show. You have to build an audience. You have to be prepared, just like any business, to lose money on the outset. So if it's something you think will work, you got to throw everything you got at it, not just financially, but throw your whole self into it, and make a run at it. That's my advice. Just try it and see what happens. You might find you start out doing lucha libre and you divert into something entirely different that you didn't expect to. Quick fire. How many tickets do you aim to sell per show? Where and how do you sell tickets? So we sell tickets at the door, and we sell tickets online through our website. How many tickets we aim to sell? All of them. So all of them is a generic answer, but it's really the amount your venue can hold. I think where I'm at, the max we could do pre-COVID is like 150. Now with COVID, I think it's like 100. So, yeah, so I don't know. I don't think I would push any more than 100. I think it's 150 with COVID, but I'm including staff. So, and the building, I don't know if I said the building was 300 or 150, but I meant 300, under normal situations pre-COVID. I'm in a state where pro wrestling is run by the State Athletic Commission. Lots of rules and regulations you have to follow. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I don't run in Pennsylvania. There used to be a guy in Pennsylvania who you could book on your show. He was terrible, but he came with the ring, and if you booked him, the State Athletic Commission never showed up at your show, mysteriously or miraculously, I guess. So it's all kinds of rigged, and it's garbage, the athletic commissions, because they don't do anything for you. If one of your guys gets hurt or you get hurt or somebody sues you, they're not there for you. They're providing no service other than taking some of your money in most cases. I'm not a big fan of the athletic commissions. We were dealing with one in Delaware that was fine, and literally all we had to do was send them a check for $100, and we could do whatever the hell we wanted. Like, what was the purpose of that? And they called it a advertising permit. Even though we weren't advertising in Delaware, we were advertising online, but we were running the show in Delaware. It's garbage. Canada. Oh, hey, my first wrestling gimmick. I was from Canada. UK, by the way, UK. I went to UK right before my daughter was born. It is my favorite country I've ever been to. I've been to a lot of countries down closer to America. I've actually never been to Canada. I was supposed to go at the start of this year, but COVID derailed that. But yeah, I didn't expect to love England as much as I did. But yeah, I think that the Crown really made me want to go to England. What are your views towards booking intergender matches? Oh, controversial. Damn, you got me. Okay, I don't like them because the crowd I run is a family crowd, and for me, where we run, those always get crickets. So we did a spot where we had a girl come into a battle royal, and I was like, let me try this again because I haven't tried this in a while. Let me try to do some intergender stuff. So maybe because times change every couple years or whatever. The girl came in, did her spots and everything like that. The crowd was kind of okay with it, and then she stood up to like one of the big guys, and the crowd just went dead. So it's not that girls are less or girls can't do the same or any of that. It's just the crowd doesn't react the same way, and they almost get uncomfortable. At least our crowd does. So I try to steer away from that. Now, as far as girl versus girl, that's fine. There's no issue with that. But the intergender stuff doesn't seem to get over with my crowd, unless maybe I'm just doing it wrong too. Oh man, the questions are flying by here now. On a normal show, how many guests or comp tickets do you normally have to give to people? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I ever keep track, honestly. It's just kind of like, don't sit in these particular seats because they're reserved for somebody. Other than that, sit wherever you want or grab a chair. So I wouldn't guess it's more. It can't be more than 20. It can't be. And then there's some guys who are like former wrestlers and stuff like that who will hang out in the back. But it's not more than 20, I would say. What things do you hate seeing from indie workers? Moves, attitude, asking particular questions. So I hate when I have a piece of paper in front of me, and so I wrote like the Super 8. I think I did a video on this. I wrote the Super 8 real last minute, and I was literally writing it like this, and I'm figuring it all out, and then people come and start talking to me as I'm writing the show, asking me what they're going to do on the show, and I just have to keep showing them like, it's blank. I don't know. Give me a couple seconds. I'm going to try to figure it out. That always drives me nuts. And as far as moves, I don't really hate a lot of moves, but I think the Canadian Destroyer is overdone, and I'd like to see that go away for a while. One thing I really liked from the Super 8 was a very good professional wrestler used, and that's his name. It's not just a description of him. He used the DDT as a finish, and I loved it. I think the DDT should be a finish. I don't think it should be a setup move. And I do hate the it takes 9 million finishes to beat everybody every single time thing. I think Rock and Austin are to blame for that, honestly. I know I get heat for that, but I think Rock and Austin did that too many times. It took, how many stunners to beat The Rock, how many rock bottoms for him to get a near fall on Austin. So as great as those matches were, they started this trend, so it's their fault. And it worked out well for them, so I guess you can't fault them. Greetings from Bolivia. Get out of here. How you doing? Thanks for your priceless advice. I don't know if it's priceless. Most of Canada still isn't running shows right now. That makes sense. Again, budget not in mind, production-wise, as realistically as possible. What would you like to add to your shows? I guess I can't say Jerry Lawler because he's working for WWF. I mean, he still works independent shows, but there's a guy who could do anything on the show. Okay, so here's somebody who's not working for anywhere. Joey Styles. I think I have a picture of over here. I would have Joey Styles do commentary. I absolutely love Joey Styles. Joey Styles and Lance Russell are my two favorite commentators of all time. I know everybody says Jim Ross. Joey Styles, absolutely love him. I tried getting him to come to one of those one time and said, hey, nobody will ever see this crap. Will you come and do commentary? But I've never been able to make contact with him. So if anybody out there knows Joey Styles, have him call me. England, their first gigs. Next time, come to you. I'll be your personal tour guide. Okay, thank you. Did you see any British wrestling? No. So I was actually supposed to go to Branson, Missouri, because I'm an 85-year-old man, and my wife was pregnant at the time, so it was the last time she could fly for a couple months. And then once we had my daughter, we figured we weren't going to fly very often. So I changed it from Branson, and I surprised her, and we went to England. But I had only taken off work like 5 days, and then with the travel there and back, it ended up being like 3 days we were there. So the 3 days we were there were like a weekday. So there was no, I don't think there was anybody running. So I didn't get to see any wrestling. Plus, I was with my wife, so she's not a big wrestling fan. So I couldn't spend any of my time doing that. It was really just the real touristy stuff, Buckingham Palace, the Harry Potter Warner Brothers Museum. Actually, we did like 3 Harry Potter things now that I think about it. And all that, like Big Ben and all the touristy shit. No, I don't care for intergender wrestling matches either. It's not that I don't care for them. It's just that they just haven't worked for me. And I try not to book stuff that doesn't work for the crowd. Territory base. Super kick is overdone too. Absolutely. Yeah, to me, the super kick will always be a finish because I'm a Shawn Michaels mark. South Africa is not currently running any shows. I miss hearing Joey Styles. He definitely brought the enthusiasm. Not just that, he had like that snarky, like kind of funny demeanor to him that I always enjoyed. So I don't know. I really miss Joey Styles. I think wrestling is worse off without him. One of the questions I had that I did want to get to is favorite backyard wrestling YouTube channel. And I don't have one. Because I don't watch regular wrestling. I certainly don't watch backyard wrestling. I'll tell you what, I think I'm 35 years old. And I would, to this day, if I wasn't renting a ring and I had a ring, I would set up the ring in my backyard. It's snowing right now, but I would set up the ring in my backyard, have my friends over, and just wrestle in the backyard because it's so much fun. And especially in the fall. If you've ever wrestled in the backyard in the fall, it's like the best feeling. The weather's nice. It smells good. You get the leaves and everything like that. If you're from somewhere that has like a, New England fall, it was absolutely my favorite. So I would definitely do that. I will say for a backyard YouTube channel, it wasn't YouTube, but back in the day, there was I guess you had to go to their website and download their videos. It was a channel called EBW. And I think it was EBW. I could be wrong. They were from Portland, Oregon, and this had to be 2000 or 2001. And there was a guy called like Decon, and there was a guy called The Franchise, and it was really the inspiration for me, like trying to legitimize my backyard wrestling career. But yeah, they did an awesome job, and I wish I could find their stuff online. To just watch it and see how it holds up. I would definitely watch that again. Have you thought about running a wrestling convention? If not, would you? I don't think I would. And I enjoy going to them. I went to one as recent as maybe like 3 months before the COVID stuff happened. I think I went to one. Oh, I actually have a good story about that too. Hang on, my Alexa's going off here. Hang on 1 second. I don't know if you ever had your Alexa go off and you have no idea why, but that's what just happened. Apparently, I set an alarm for 2:00, or my wife did, and I have no idea why. So yeah, so for the convention, I was at a convention, and I had booked a table, and we were promoting a podcast I was doing at the time with Tito Santana and John Finnegan, separate podcasts. But the John Finnegan one was about his days in ECW, and the Tito Santana one was his days in WWF, his whole career, really. So we rented a table. And then I realized I had actually rented space for 3 tables because you had the option for 1 table or 3 tables, and I booked 3. So I had Shane Douglas was on our show the week before, and he told me he was going to be at the convention, or he was going to try to go. And I said, "Oh, hey, we have a table. Why don't you guys come at our table, and you don't have to, because we're not going to need. We need half a table. We're handing out pamphlets. That's really all we're doing, and people are going to meet Tito or whatever." So he brought Sandman and Jerry Lynn and Mikey Whipwreck. I wish I had the picture. I could pull it up here. I don't have the picture. But anyway, we're inside the ECW arena. Now, remember, I'm a huge ECW mark, as you can see. And I have my iPad with me. So I pull out my iPad, and I wanted to show my buddy something that was the last ECW show. And I showed it to him. And then Sandman started watching it because he had never seen it before. And then Shane Douglas started watching it. So I'm sitting there in the ECW arena watching the last ECW show with Shane Douglas and Sandman. And then there's like fans coming up and they're just like kind of high and they're just kind of really into. And you're getting to hear these stories from these guys who lived it in the place where it became famous. And it was just one of the coolest moments of my entire like wrestling fandom. And it's something I'll never forget. Like, just absolutely was I popped for that. So yeah, that was a quick side story. I'm sorry. I'm trying to run. We have a promotion that's spreading and trying to run in everyone else's cities and towns. 3 Providences now. How would you go about unity of some of the promoters' promotions being choked out? So, yeah, so I have something in the works for that, and I actually was supposed to do the announcement yesterday, so I can't actually talk about it right now. But I have an idea for something like that, and it's something that's very much for my wrestling company. It's coming out, I think, early next week now, because we're gonna meet up tonight and discuss it. So I have something for that. As far as, you know, promoters are allowed to go to other places, right? They don't need to be stuck in one area. Where I draw the line is when they start blocking your posters or taking down your posters and putting up theirs, or if they start trying to run your building. That's just, to me, it's unethical. And to me, those people don't need to be in the wrestling business. We have people like that in New Jersey, and I've talked about them before. But they're also people who have stolen money from charities. So I call them out every chance I get. I just post stuff online about them as myself, like, just no regard. Like, I don't care. Especially when you're a company stealing from like kids charities and stuff. Like, how low are you? That gives all of us a bad name. So, I mean, if that's the kind of promotion that's what you say, spreading and running everywhere else, then do your best to stomp them out. If they're just spreading and they're expanding, is probably a better term. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. What suggestions do you have to attract women to the sport of wrestling? Are you talking about as wrestlers or as fans? I'm not sure, because there are plenty of women wrestlers out there. How do you handle an import wrestler who doesn't speak any to very little English? So I only had to deal with that once. It was Masato Tanaka, and he didn't speak very much English. I don't know how wrestlers do that, honestly. And I've asked that a million times, and I always get the same answer. It's always, well, I mean, clothesline is pretty universal. Yeah, but you got to say, like, Irish whip and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. I actually took, it was Steve Corino, Bennett, who's a referee for WWF now, and Masato Tanaka, and we went to this crappy diner that I love up in North Jersey after a Jersey All Pro show, and they all hated me for it. Apparently, everybody just felt real sick afterwards. I was fine, but I guess Tanaka's probably not a big fan of this channel. I'll make sure to stay tuned. Thank you. He's doing this in 3 Providence states, basically. Okay. Women as wrestlers. Yeah, I don't think you need to attract more women to wrestling. I think there are a ton. It's just a matter of doing a little research and seeking them out. They're there. They're there in every state. And maybe some of them are a little, I don't want to say quiet, for lack of a better term. I'll say quiet right now. But there's people who just don't want to wrestle right now because of everything that's going on. So I get it. I understand it. But they are out there. You just got to kind of probably wait till the world is back to normal, and hopefully a couple months. All right, we're going to do one more question here. Let's make it a good one. Should you always ask what their booking fees are or let them bring it up And should you negotiate the price? Well, it depends. And I feel like I said that answer for everything, but it's true. I always say, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this date, and this date. Can you do all three? Because I have an idea for 3 shows. If you can't make all 3, let's stop right there. Can you make these 3 dates in this town at this time? Where are you located out of? If it's somebody I don't know, maybe they're not from New Jersey. So I have to factor in if I have to fly them in, and what's your booking rate? And some people are real secretive about it, and then some people will just flat out tell you. And I much prefer that. I much prefer being honest. So if somebody says, my booking rate is 150. All right, well, I thought this guy was going to charge me 50, right? And now he's charging me 150. All right, so I just reply back, hey, unfortunately, that's a little higher than what I can do right now. So if anything opens up in the future, I'll keep you in mind. Sometimes they'll come back and they'll say, hey, what's your budget? And we'll see if we can work something out. And you could tell him, I had planned for $50, and he might say, oh, you're too far off. No harm, no foul. So yeah, you can negotiate the price. My instinct is not to negotiate the price. I try to pay everybody what they expect, but a lot of times it doesn't equate to what I think they can draw or what we can draw, especially right now. The climate is so unpredictable and kind of weird right now. Okay. Hello, Ryan. Are you accepting booking inquiries to your promotion? Are you inactive because of the virus? No, we're still running. But I'm not really looking for anybody. I kind of have my core group of guys for the next couple shows. I usually book out 4 to 5 shows in advance. So I'm not looking for anybody at this time, but you can find on our websites all our email and stuff like that. All right, last question. This is Danielle. Is that what that? I'm sorry if I'm saying the name wrong. I'm terrible with names. When's the next Super 8 happening again? I'd love to come out and hopefully talk to you guys. I'd love to get experience and help however I can. I really want to learn. Okay, so the next Super 8 is May 1st. That's in Morganville, and I don't want to turn this into a plug for my show. But yeah, it's going to be one of those deals where it's kind of a limited amount of tickets. So if anybody's looking to get tickets, get it now, because once they're sold out, that's it. We're only selling, X number of tickets, and we're allowing X number of staff in. And once we hit those thresholds, that's it. We're closed off. So, and I recommend anybody who's trying to run during COVID right now, do the same thing. Have a number and do not exceed it, because this whole thing's a serious thing, and we should all kind of treat it that way. So I don't know if you guys enjoyed this this live thing. If you did, just let me know in the comments here, and maybe we could try to do another one at some point. I didn't have a video for this week, so I'm like, oh, we'll just answer these couple questions. We'll be on here for 10 minutes, and it's almost been an hour and 10 minutes. So thank you guys, and as always, I don't know if I say it enough, but thank you guys for the support on this channel. I have a great time with this channel, and I hope you guys do as well. I think it's very rare in pro wrestling to build a community where 99% of it is positive and people want to learn. And there's people here who are answering other people's questions before I get to. And that's really rare in anything on the internet, quite honestly, but especially in wrestling. So thank you guys all for the support. And if you guys like this, let me know, and we can maybe we can do something like this again. Until then, hopefully nobody's getting snowed in right now. I'm getting snowed in. So have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.